So let's begin here. We have a simple trinomial today we're looking at, focusing on factoring a trinomial when there is no letter in front of x. Well, actually, no number, rather. There's the number 1, though. We just never write it. So I'm kind of telling you half-truths here. Okay. Going down here, we have this one. When we multiply it out, we get x squared plus x. Then with the 4, we get 4x and plus 4. So we have x's on one spot, x's on the other spot. We see that. Here's our 4x, and here's our x. But it's the arrangement of the 1 tiles. So we can have a 1 by 4 arrangement, or down here, a 2 by 2 arrangement. So then we check to see which ones are going to add up to the sum 5x. So here we have 4 plus 1, which gives us 5x. That's why that's the correct arrangement. This arrangement here is going to give us 2x plus 2x. So that's going to be 4x, and that's not what we want. Right? It's not the 5x that we need. So this is not the factor, but rather the factors are x plus 1 and x plus 4. So you need to know how to multiply going this direction, as well as how to divide or how to factor going the other direction. Your tiles can help you. But the two things that we really focused on was, number 1, what multiplied to 4. So what numbers multiply to 4? That's the arrangement of the 1 tiles. As well, then, we double check to see which one added to 5x. So what we looked at was the product, and we looked at the sum. And that's the two methods, or the two names for the method of factoring a trinomial. So when we're having a trinomial in this form, we call it the, I call it the sum product method. And some teachers use a less mathy term, which is add multiply. Okay. So some people are already saying, yeah, they've heard of that before. That's the same name for the same method. Okay. So what we have to look at is we have to look at the sum, and we always the sum is 11, and the product is 24. So what numbers multiply to 24? 1 end, 2 end, 3 end, 4 end. Okay. So you're doing that pretty quick in your head. But now you have to see which ones will get you to 11. This one can get me to either a 10 or a 14, depending on whether I add or subtract. This one can get me to a 23 or a 25, depending on whether I add or subtract. This one can get me to 11 or, sorry, the low number I should do first. What's the low number? 5? Or the high number is 11. This one can get me to 2 or to 10. So which combination is it that we want? We have 3 and 8. Okay, so we're going to focus on the 3 and 8. So we have to know where things are coming from. The x squared breaks down to x times x. And the 24 breaks down to a 3 and an 8. It doesn't matter where you put them. It does not matter. But now you have to check your sum. What do the signs have to be to multiply to a positive 24? Okay. So you have to multiply to a positive 24, and yet you have to check your signs to make sure that they can add to a plus 11. So you kind of look at your numbers first and then check your signs. So what do you think? Both positives. They have to be. Right? Positives multiply to a positive. Negatives multiply as well, but if we have both negatives, you'll never get a positive 11. Okay? So for a positive number, you can look at positive times a positive or negative times a negative. But we cannot have the negative times a negative due to the 11 sum, positive 11. Okay, let's look at the next one. I threw a lot of stuff at you. Okay, threw it all at you. So let's kind of focus a little bit more. What's the sum? Keely. Okay, you find it right in front of that letter. Not just a 6, though. It's a sign in front as well. Yeah, -6. Okay. What's the product? Brenda? +9. Good. Okay. So what numbers multiply to 9? 1 and 9, or 3 and 3? Which one's going to get us to a sum of 6? Yeah, 3 and 3. Okay. So let's write it down. Here's an M, there's an M. That comes from the very first one, breaking apart. Okay. Now we have a 3 and a 3, but what do our signs have to be? Because you want them to multiply to a negative, but multiply to a positive, but add to a negative. So what arrangements will give us that? In order to be negative, they got to be negative. So this one's going to have to be a negative times a negative. So it should be m minus 3 times m minus 3. Now if I factor that, how else can I write it, and how else should I write it for the second step? We talked about it earlier. There's 2 of them the same. Yeah, so use the exponent 2. So m minus 3 all squared. Okay. Hey, people are kind of getting it. Kind of. Okay, so we're going to do some more examples. Let's start here. The sum and the product. Sum's a +7, product's a +12. Go ahead and do this one. Think of the factors that multiply to 12. What are they? In your head. In your head. Joey, what numbers are you going to work with? Don't tell me the signs. Yeah, 3 and 4. So your y breaks up. It's a y now, so you have to use a different letter. You're going to have 3 and 4, and now you have to think which numbers, or what do the signs have to be to add to 7 and multiply to a positive 12. Victor? What's the answer going to be? Yeah, y positive 3 and positive 4. So both positives. Okay. Questions? Okay, now let's look at the letters for question 4. Okay. M squared breaks up to the front of each term. So m times m. What about n squared? Where is it going to be found? The back. And so what does n squared break into? N times n. Okay. And you'll notice now, for the multiplication, m times n and n times n, that's how you get that middle term of nn. It's from the multiplication of the two letters. So once you get the letters sorted out, now you can work on the sum and the product. So it's important to know how it's happening, right? How is it multiplying, so you can factor it correctly. Okay, so look at the front breaking up, look at the back breaking up, and the middle should be the letters being multiplied together. So what's the sum? What's the product? Okay. Finish this off. What are the numbers? Ruhi, what do you think? Good, 2 and 3. So I put a 2 in front of the n, a 3 in front of the n. Now what are the signs? Yeah, they both have to be positive. Okay, so you have to have a positive 2n and a positive 3n. How many people got that? Hands up. Awesome, good. Okay, try the next one now, all by yourself. You got to be careful though, because you have a negative sum and a positive multiplication again. So that's going to be a little bit different. Okay, you've looked at it before. Go for it. Okay, so when you're looking at these ones, you get 1 and 30, 2 and 15 might work. 3 and 10 might also work. And really, it's kind of between 2 and 15 and 3 and 10. So now you got to be careful, and you got to be a detective. You can set up your factors with an x in front, and then you can guess and check. Right? 2 and 15 or 3 and 10? Well, let's try 3 and 10. Actually, let's try 2 and 15 first. There's 15, there's 2. So I'm trying this, and I'm thinking, well, I'm going to multiply to a negative, so a positive, but add to a negative. The only way to get that is if both are negative. Okay, so they both have to be negative. Now when I check, I add to a negative 17x. Right, I get a negative 2x minus a 5x. Well, that's a problem, isn't it? So is the answer 2 and 15? No. So then you just got to erase it. That's all you can do. You tried it, you checked it, it doesn't work. So now try the other ones, 3 and 10. Again, you see that it multiplies to a positive number, but the sum is negative. The only way to have this combination is to have two negative numbers multiplying by each other. So you have to put a negative and a negative. Now the sum is going to be a negative 3x minus 10x. That gives us the 13. Check. And 3 times 10 multiplies to 30. So you can always double check this stuff. You shouldn't get a wrong answer. You might be stuck and not find a factor, but really it shouldn't be wrong because you can always check. Okay. How many people got this one? Hands up. All right, good. That's a trickier one. Try 6 altogether. Now, interesting to note, this number is close to 1. Okay. And this here is a negative number. How can you multiply to a negative? There's only one way with your signs. Yeah, the only way is to have one positive and one negative. And that's a good clue with your sum being very close to 1. Okay? So your sum equals plus 1. Your product's negative 12. Go for it. See what you can do. Okay, so continue on now. We have 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. We're looking for a difference of 1. It's got to be 3 and 4. Okay. So they're only 1 apart. So we have a 3, we have a 4. It doesn't matter where you put them. But the sign in front is important. What sign is your sum? What is your sum? Yeah, it's a positive. In order to have a final value that's a positive, the larger number must have the positive. Okay? So this means the larger number has a positive sign. And that's just because the sum was positive. What if the sum was negative? Then the larger number would have to be negative. Okay. Turn it over. Try question 7. Question 7, you got to break up x4. Okay, go for it. Question 7, try it. So you have to have them equal, right? Front and to front. Okay, so x4. What happens there? x4. I'll ask Harmon. Good. So we have x squared at the front of both of them. What about the sum equals 30, product equals negative 99. Oh, it's negative. Negative. That means one's got to be positive, one's got to be negative. Okay. The numbers are 3 and 33. And so which one should be positive? Yeah, it's got to be the larger one. Okay. So now the larger has this sign. Okay. And so this will be a negative. Any questions? How many people got that? Hands up. Okay, a few less. Okay, try the next one now. Okay, try the next one. Go. Okay, who has the numbers? Aisha? Okay, so 2 and 10, definitely. Okay, so which one's going to be negative? Victor? 10. Why, Victor? Yeah, and it's because the middle sum is negative, so your larger number has to be negative. And double check by adding like Victor did. Good job, Victor. Okay, you can always double check by adding. Remember, you're going to get negative 10y plus 2y, that's negative 8y. Okay. Any questions? Okay, next example. Let's deal with the letters first. Let's see how good you are with these letters. What's the letter for the front? X. And what's the letter for the back term on the what? Because I asked. Okay, it's y, you're right. So y squared breaks into y and y. So now your sum's negative 5, your product equals negative 36. Go for it. Okay. So focus on the letters separate than the numbers. Now we'll look at the numbers, do sum and product. Okay, I'm going to ask Jeff. Okay, so 9 and 4, and you're saying 9 should be negative?
Yeah.
Why? Right, because the middle sum is negative, so your larger number has to be negative as well. Okay. Good job. How many people got that one? Hands up. All right. Now, number 10's a little bit different. What's a bit different with question number 10? Yeah, go ahead. There's a number? What number? Yeah, so we got a 5. Yes, Jeff? Oh, but there's no A here. Yeah. What do you notice about the numbers? All three of them now. Look at them all together. Yeah, multiples of 5. Remember a different type of factoring? GCF? Aha! GCF. There's our greatest common factor that we have to take out first. When there's a number in front in this position, always check for a GCF, a greatest common factor. So 5, 15, and 20, what's the greatest common factor? 5. So divide all three terms by 5, write your answer in brackets. And what goes in front of the brackets? Any ideas? 5. Okay, you don't want to lose a factor, right? You don't want to lose that factor of 5. If you lose a factor, that makes you a person that loses. So don't lose the factor. Okay, divide it. Go for it. What goes in the brackets, Kavir? Minus 4, good. So what do you think we can do now? Do we have our prime factors, or can we go one step further? Of course, one step further, otherwise why are you giving you a question? So now we take this sucker inside, the trinomial inside the brackets, and we find the product, and right, we do sum and product. Sum is plus 3, product is negative 4. How many factors are you going to finish the question with? Because you're going to break it up into two binomials, but don't forget the 5. Okay, go for it. Factor this one, see what you do. Emily, what'd you get? Oh, yeah, that's right. Dylan, what'd you get?
I'm not done yet.
Oh. Well, what numbers multiply to 4, Dylan? 2 times 2? And what else? Okay, so which of those two can get you to 3? No, it's either going to be... Yeah, 1 times 4. So here's a 1, there's a 4. And what's the sign of your bigger number? Look right here. Bigger number has to be positive. Okay, so this would be positive 4 minus 1. Now, what if you don't take out the 5? Because sometimes you can factor without taking it out. Well, your factors then wouldn't be prime. So you wouldn't have prime factors, so it's not correct. So you always look, if any time that you have a simple little number in front, check a GCF first. Okay, check the GCF first. Okay, a couple more examples. Number 11, you have x4 and y4, and then in the middle, x squared, y squared. Can you take out a GCF first? Oh, good. Go for it. Take out your GCF first. So then once your GCF is out, then go and factor. Okay. I'll give you a second here to do that. Okay, so x4 breaks into what? Priya? Good, so x4 goes there. What about y4, Priya? Good. And so numbers that multiply to 6. Okay, 2 and 3. So put 2 here, 3 there. And what about the signs? Good. See, you do know the answer. Am I correct now? Hands up if you think I'm correct. Hands up if you think I'm incorrect. Ah, Brielle, talk to me. Exactly. I lost a factor. I won't get full marks. So you got to make sure for this question you have 1, 2, 3 factors. Just like the last one, if you take it a GCF, you have 3 factors. Okay, question number 12. Now, here's what they're going to do to you. Because y is at the end, when you finally factor it, you're going to have a y at the end. That's how they'll rate their answer. Okay. So there's 2 ways of doing this. You can try and factor it this way, or what you can do is you can rearrange it. Okay, and factor it. So try it this way, rearrange it, then go ahead and factor it. So numbers that multiply to 6 add to -5. What could it be? Y minus 2, y minus 3. Does that work? No? Don't they multiply to a positive 6? Don't they add to a -5? Yeah, they do work. Okay. But when you change the format, you have to change the sign. Okay, so now it becomes a -2 plus y, -3 plus y. Is that a normal way of writing it? No, because you have a negative sign in front. So what you got to do is multiply the whole thing by a -1. Okay. So what happens, this is kind of weird, it goes from -2 to a positive 2 minus y, -3 to a positive 3, and then minus y. Yes, Teresa. Okay. Now, 13. -m squared plus 5m plus 24. What should we take out because of the negative sign in front of the m? Take out a GCF of -1. So you get -1 times m squared minus 5m minus 24. Then do sum and product. Go. Okay, so now we need to rewrite as 3 plus m, -8 plus m. Multiply the -1 inside, and you should get a -3. No, check that. You should multiply the -1 inside to this factor. So you get 3 plus m and 8 minus m. No, I don't really factor like this very often. That's why I don't really like the method, and I'm not 100% fond of it. What I like to do is be a detective and realize, because I have my -m squared, I know that I'm going to have a minus m and a positive m. And then I look at my sum product of 24, and I get 3 and 5. So I can go 3 and 5, or 5 and 3. Well, 3 and 5, 3 and 8, pardon me. Okay, so 3 and 8. And I look at my middle sum. I see that my middle sum is positive 5, so it's got to be, the larger sum must be positive. So I know that I have to have my 8 here times in by the positive m, and then my 3 has to go here, so it multiplies to give you the negative 3. Okay, so it's almost easier if you kind of work backwards being a detective. Teresa?
It would be m minus 3 because of the negative 1 plus 3 to 1.
What I do is I multiply it into the one with the sign in front of right here to fix that problem. I didn't multiply it into both because then I would have multiplied it twice. Right. So there's kind of a long algebra explanation for that. But kind of looking at it this way, Teresa, if it's 2 times 3 times 5, I just go 2 times 3, or I go 2 times 5. I don't go 2 times 3 times 2 times 5. Right? I don't multiply it twice. I just multiply it either to the first number or to the second number. Okay. So it's a little unclear, I know. And those are the tough ones. Okay, 15. They love K questions. 100% guarantee it's going to be on your test, some shape or form. So for this one, T, okay, we don't know what the product is. So we're looking at the product. But we know that the sum has to equal 7. So we have to figure out what numbers add to 7. So we just start listing them, not add to 1, add to 7. So 1 plus what? 6. 2 plus. 3 plus. Any other combinations? No. So then what we figure out is what's the product of those numbers. What's 1 times 6? What's 2 times 5? What's 3 times 4? 7. Can it work out to anything else for a plus 7? Sorry, 12. You know what I did? That's funny because I just did that last class. Same thing. 12. Okay. Any other combinations that add to a plus 7? What about negative 1 and a positive 7? Okay. Negative 1 and a positive 7? Wouldn't that add to a 7? Sorry, negative 1 and a positive 8. Thanks. So that's going to add to a 7. What's that product? Negative 8. What about a negative 2 and what? 9. What does that multiply to? Negative 18. What else do we have? Negative 3 and... Okay. Negative 3 and 10 multiplies to negative 30. Okay. So a lot of different answers. Now what they're going to do is they're going to limit the value. Right? They're going to limit to some value. They're probably going to say only positive integers. And so what we'd be looking at then would be these numbers. And our K values would be K equals 6, 10, 12. Okay? Somehow they will limit K. Now B is a little more straightforward. Because B, we're looking at the product equals negative 12. So what numbers multiply to 12? 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. So what's the sum? Now keep in mind, because it's a negative, let's put our negative signs on the first one. What do we get for the sum? 11 and 2 and 6, 4 and 3 and 4 is 1. So 11, 4 are 1. Then we can take our negatives and put them on the other side. So now the larger number can be negative. So what do we get now? A negative 11, a negative 4, and a negative 1. Do you guys remember how we write that then for k? K can equal what? Plus or minus 1? Remember how we do the plus or minus right on top of each other? Or what else can k equal? Plus or minus 4. And the last one? Plus or minus 11. Okay. And so that would be your answer. Any questions? All right.